Looking for the most compact phone with the best specs out there right now, I don't think there's any question about it which phone that you should be getting then, and that is the S23. So size is your biggest thing: screen size, battery life, etc., and the S Pen. These are all things that may be important to some people. You, it may not be. I really like portability and being able to easily utilize my phone with one hand. These big phones nowadays, you can't. You're trying to move your thumb over to the other side of the screen. Thankfully, there's one-handed mode, but you know, a lot of situations you can't reach the whole phone because of this. You're not getting the best battery life. You're not getting the absolute top-notch cameras, but these cameras are so close to what you can get on the Ultra that you might not even notice the difference, really. And as far as the chip inside and the specifications of the differences, guess what? There's no difference in this model now. They're all running Dragon 8 Gen 2 Galaxy Edition, which essentially is just an overclocked version that Samsung did with the 8 Gen 2 processor. So as far as the processor, there's some other very minor differences, but that really comes down to overall space and cooling. Unless you're really gaming and paying attention to frame rate, you're never going to notice any difference. I've literally been using both of these phones for a month, and I can't tell any performance difference between the two. Even this one only has 8 gig of RAM compared to the other. And if you don't know, the RAM, of course, is just helping keep more apps in the background running. So you won't even notice it even with that. 8 gig of RAM in today's phones is plenty sufficient. So back to the main point here. If you're looking for a great device that is portable and gets the job done every day and doesn't limit on features, making you forced to go to the higher priced tier or the Ultra, the Pro, etc., because you really feel like you're missing out on features, Samsung really didn't do that with this phone. You're getting everything that you basically need as a day-to-day usage phone that you would get in the Ultra. Again, the only reason you're getting the Ultra is a few reasons. So out of this phone, what are some of the other benefits? So this is an aluminum body on this phone, a brand new color as well. It's a green, so this is the year of green if you really like green phones. Other manufacturers have done their variation of green, so I like this green a lot. It's kind of more like a grayish green, so it's not like, it's a subtle green. You won't be just overloaded with color green. I would recommend, though, of course, on any phone, or this one, or any other Samsung line of phones, is to start with a bigger amount of storage than the base. So I would recommend going up to 256 on this one, so that way you have plenty of storage to grow with your app expansion and give you enough to where you can easily have a lot of pictures and videos without problems. Speaking of pictures and videos, so you have 3 cameras on this device. So you have technically one less than the S Ultra does, and the main camera is a 50 megapixel wide. You have the other 2 lenses like the S23 have, an ultra wide that's at 12 megapixels, and then you have a telephoto that is at 10 megapixels. Additional optical zoom that the S23 Ultra has that goes up to 10x zoom. If you're really looking for zoom features, then you obviously have to go to the S23. But if you're just looking for a good overall general purpose shooter phone, you're not going to notice a difference out of this 50 megapixel main lens as opposed to the 200 megapixel lens on the S23. So unless you're really printing out large frame pictures or trying to get a lot of detail zoomed in after you take a photo, anything you post online of either of these phones is going to look great. And video as well. The stabilization on these new models of Samsung phones is fantastic. It's probably some of the best stabilization you can get in a smartphone now. And the video can go up to 30 frames a second on 4K. So you're not missing out on anything with, you know, potentially previous versions dropping down to 1080 or other phones that still drop down to 1080. You don't get that with this. You're still running at 4K with a faster frame rate. So you have that as well. I just feel like unless you have very specific needs in needing the S Pen, you need that bigger battery life, you want those zoom cameras, you want that bigger screen, you require that higher resolution, this phone is a great alternative to use. It provides everything you need, the same version of Android running on the UI 5.1 skin from Samsung, all the same features in the settings, minus the S Pen features. The screen is a 6.1 inch screen, and we're utilizing an ultrasonic fingerprint reader. And I've actually found on both of phones, the ultrasonic this year is significantly better. And personally myself, ultrasonic used to be a little slower, but this year they did something to speed it up. I don't know if that's specifically the processor doing a lot of the legwork on that sensor now to speed it up, but it's great. I don't have any problems with the speed of the fingerprint reader. And at this screen size, you know, I mentioned earlier one of the major things that you might consider for the S23 Ultra is the resolution on the screen, it being 1440 or Quad HD compared to Full HD. At this size screen, you cannot tell the difference if it was at 4K. It's just visibly not attainable really unless you're really pixel peeping. You're not going to see that difference. And the resolution at 1080p on this screen is actually very nice. High detailed screen as well, with variable refresh rates involved is still as well with this. It'll go up to 120 Hertz depending on what you're doing on the screen, so you're not missing out on the refresh rate either. So you're really not missing out on anything. To conclude, personally, if you're trying to decide which one to still get at this point with 30 days, I've spent about half the time with both, and honestly, just because of comfort in my hand, I would pick the S23 unless you are a big fan of the S Pen or any of the other features I said earlier with S23. Honestly, my perfect dream phone would be this size or a fold that was able to write on the front screen, or an S23 that I was able to use an S Pen on. That would be perfect and I would be absolutely happy. I'm a big S Pen fan, so that's why I kind of go with the bigger ones. Stay tuned for a review on the bigger brother if you're interested in a bigger size phone and what it has to offer. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I will see you in the next video.